Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Update May 3rd, 2026, time in Texas, about 9 a.m. Some of the things we'll cover: President Trump moves the CCP money for New York City. Iran puts out like 100 plus speedboats to lay more mines. And President Trump's shoot-kill order is not enacted, so we wonder why. It appears the U.S. military is waiting for President Trump's signal to go. So let's begin with Patriot subscriber. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, news flash to Iran. You are not the only source for oil. I have another one who says, we need the Dem Party to tell their radical members to stop fomenting hatred toward President Trump, the Republicans, and conservatives in America. I believe the Democrat Party is mostly communist. We have this today. The sun is pretty quiet, but we are seeing on Earth major upheavals in the Philippines. We have the Mayon volcano erupting, putting out a pyroclastic flow 4 kilometers long, or about 3 miles, disrupting traffic. And we have in Italy. So in the Alps, we have many peaks in the Alps that over the past few years have begun to disintegrate. So the 8th peak in the Alps in Italy is now falling apart. It's being put forth because the permafrost, the freeze that was holding these peaks in place, is now melting. And we have the Krakatoa volcano in Japan also waking up. As I've put out many times, what I received from God in the fall of 2020 is magma is rising in all directions inside the earth to the surface, and we would begin to see more earthquakes and volcanoes. We have this from Breitbart. So in New York City, May 1, they had rallies and some type of speaking forum where Mandami, the Dem commie mayor, spoke. But it's coming out that it was the May event, May 1, in New York City, was organized and paid for by the CCP via Chinese-operated Neville Singham through 2 groups, the People's Forum and the Party for Socialism. Mandami spoke and talked about taxing the rich, and there were banners and posters handed out promoting communism. So that's going on in New York City. We have this on the U.S. economic front. We saw in the past few days a budget airline, Spirit, go out of business. That was due to what's going on in the Middle East, increasing the cost of jet fuel. And we're hearing that Delta is also canceling flights months into the future. So that's going on. Delta says it's due to crew restrictions. We don't know what that means. And we have this from New York Prepper. So Friday, we had $8 million in emergency weapons funds and weapons immediately going to Israel and also to Middle East countries, including air defense. So that was Friday. No doubt that could have been part of what we were hearing, C-17s moving on that day also. And this is to support, it's being put forth by analysts, the next U.S. Major strikes on Iran from China. We have China now telling its 5 Chinese refineries in China to simply ignore the U.S. sanctions on oil coming from the Middle East, according to Reuters. And we have this from Crux. So, May 2nd, yesterday, we had the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, hitting Hezbollah in Lebanon, as Hezbollah had been hitting Israel. And we're hearing another reason that President Trump is now talking about hitting Cuba is because Cuba is sheltering Hezbollah fighters in Cuba, 90 miles off of the Florida coastline, along with Chinese military. So way to go, President Trump, protect America. And we have this from open source intel that Israel, yes, we know this morning is hitting Hezbollah. That's also coming out from Israeli Channel 12, from U.S. Intel. So last night, just a few minutes to midnight, President Trump was moved from Mar-a-Lago to his Doral Resort location that's only 10 minutes away from CENTCOM. It's believed that that would place him closer directly to the military location, where if there was a sudden U.S. military move against Iran, he would be better positioned to go directly to CENTCOM and give orders. So that's going on. We also had, at that same time, in Iran launching one swarm of speedboats, 80, another swarm, 40, along the southern border of Iran, near the Strait of Hormuz. They were out in the water and going about, it's believed, to lay more mines. Now, we recall President Trump had given an order, 5 to 7 days ago about shoot, kill the speedboats if they get out into the Strait of Hormuz. For some reason, the U.S. military did not respond in that manner, possibly because the U.S. military is prepping for a major hit on Iran, so we'll have to see. But it does appear to be imminent. And we have this. So at about that same time, last night, a few minutes before midnight, is when the Iranian speedboats came out. That would be a few minutes before midnight in the U.S. At that same time is when President Trump was moved from Mar-a-Lago closer to CENTCOM location in Florida. And we have this from U.S. Intel. Yeah, President Trump was moved about 11:50 p.m. last night. About the same time, the speedboats in Iran came out. He's now 10 minutes from CENTCOM. So that's going on. And we have this from Max Afterburner. The puts out that the U.S. is already hitting Cuba. We know we've had a blockade in place for quite some time. From Promethean Update, we have about the recent call between President Trump and President Putin. That part of that call also covered a Ukraine ceasefire, and also the information that Ukraine is extending the conflict led by Europe. And we know likely where that's going. So we also have CENTCOM has turned around. The CENTCOM blockade against Iran has turned around 45 Iranian vessels. And we have information coming out, what's going on, who's in charge in Iran, that the Iranian Justice Department is totally controlled by the IRGC, as is the Foreign Minister Arachi and other individuals. We have this from 2CTV that in the past 48 hours, we've seen 14 IRGC operatives, officers taken out, possibly by action inside Iran by a group called the Immortal Guard, and this is the name for the Iranian people, and it's being put forth that possibly the taking down of the 14 IRGC could have been by the people of Iran, and also the taking down of IRGC besieged locations also could have been by the people of Iran. And we have the IRGC executing daily Iranian citizens who were using Starlink. That's their only crime. So, not really a crime, but when you are a dictator group in charge, you make up anything you want. Now, I found this curious. We're hearing information about Fema with the list of items being recommended for the American people to stock. And, you know, our normal prep stocking would be food, water, medicine, pet food, and so on. This includes plastic sheeting and duct tape in the event that American citizens have to protect any openings in their houses from debris in the air. And also to have a non-sparking wrench to shut off natural gas. A manual can opener, and ordinary unscented laundry bleach and an eyedropper in the event that you have to use 8 drops of bleach to 1 gallon of water to purify it. And we have this. Yeah. Also to stock trash bags in the event that your commodes are not working, and moist towelettes. To have a whistle in your prepping items, in an emergency when electricity and water and natural gas is down, you can use a whistle to communicate with family members. Also, put your important documents in a waterproof container. And to have 2-way radios that you can use to communicate with family members over the span of about 1 mile. So that's going on. And also to have a battery-operated carbon monoxide detector. So now, why is FEMA pushing this? We don't know. We have this from U.S. Intel that we have, China, of course, has had cuts in their supply of oil and fuel, and that China is currently using their stockpile of oil. They are cutting flights, and so that's going on. And China, meanwhile, tells their refiners to ignore U.S. sanctions on oil from the Middle East. We have this from U.S. Intel. We have that 60 nations now are mandating fuel rationing to citizens and to businesses. We have in Sri Lanka, citizens can only get 15 liters per week for their cars, 5 for their motorbikes. In Myanmar, people can only drive or fuel up on odd and even days. In the Philippines, the government has gone to a 4-day work week. So we see globally the impact of the downturn of availability of oil from the Middle East is having. From U.S. Intel, so citizens in Vietnam are told to use bikes or carpool to save on fuel. From Bangladesh, they're rationing fuel. And we see many nations, Vietnam, India, Egypt, Australia, rationing gasoline. In Japan, they're currently using their emergency stockpile. And we have this, that the U.S. military now is putting out, releasing information, this comes from Max Afterburner, on the new plane, the B-21 Raider, which is more impactful from a bomb standpoint than a B-52, plus it has radar stealth capability. From Crux, we have May 1 at night, there were drones over Tehran. The IDF is now blowing up Hezbollah terror tunnels inside Lebanon. And Cuba is a sanctuary for Hezbollah. So that's going on. And we have this from Northern Perspective. Canada has recently signed a major trade deal with the CCP. And now, guess what? The CCP is giving Canada additional orders. No Canadian flights or ships to Taiwan. So that's going on. And we have this from Alex Cristoforo. Yes, we heard recently that this week, U.S. is pulling 5,000 troops from Germany. Next on President Trump's list, likely for more troop withdrawals, is Spain and Italy. These nations came against the U.S. when we were in our initial hit on Iran, saying to the U.S., you can't even use your U.S. bases located in Europe to hit Iran. I say to President Trump, let the European pukes defend themselves. And we have this, that the U.S. now is stopping weapons flow to Europe and also to Ukraine because the U.S. is currently using them in our conflict with Iran. So weapons flow from the U.S. are being cut to Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So that's going on. So that concludes my update. I'll probably do another one this afternoon. I love you, and I'll see you soon.